Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Coast News. And as always, got some amazing news from different theme parks, rides, attractions and events all over the world. So let's get straight into the news today. Our top story for tonight, Hyperia has officially begun testing at Thorpe Park. And this is something that we have literally been waiting for nearly 3 years, like 2.5 years, ever since the ride was first announced. But if you know what I'm talking about, basically Hyperia is a brand new Mack Rides hypercoaster, which is located at Thorpe Park in Surrey, England. Obviously, when it opens on the 24th of May 2024, it will officially take the title of the UK's tallest and fastest roller coaster, reaching a maximum height of 236 feet and a top speed of over 80 miles an hour. And the ride itself looks absolutely insane. Well, obviously everything about it is crazy. Like literally the layout, so many elements on there are some like the most insane elements we've ever seen on a roller coaster. Some of them literally we've never seen in the UK or in the world for that matter. Like that weird Outer Banks dive, that's the world's first, and that looks mental. But obviously we knew that testing was going to be inevitable once they revealed the trains for the ride last week. Because obviously I spoke about it in last week's Coast News how they revealed the trains, and it looks really cool with all the gold stylization on it, in fact the gilded design and the wings on the front and everything like that. And so obviously not long after the train reveal, the ride's train was actually rolled out of the maintenance shed into the ride station via the transfer track, which was obviously a really good sign that testing was going to start very, very soon. And it was only like a matter of 2 or 3 days after it was pulled into the station that the ride officially began testing. I believe it began testing on this past Thursday. So that was I think it was the 15th of April. It's obviously just this past Tuesday. And obviously the reaction to it was wild. Honestly, like there were so many people gathering around that construction fence where Old Town was technically. Obviously at the front of the ride and waiting for it to test, and when it started testing, the crowd went wild. Honestly, like literally there were so many people clapping and cheering for this ride because it had gone through its first test cycle. And obviously technically, like I said last week's Coast News, because the Guinness World Record don't count it as a roller coaster until the train is on the track and it's done a full loop around the track. It's done multiple test runs now with the chain lift at full speed. That technically makes Hyperia now the UK's tallest and fastest roller coaster. So it's absolutely amazing to see that the ride is now testing, and I cannot wait for it to open on 24th of May. In other news today, Drayton Manor have released a brand new teaser video for The Wave. And obviously it's going to be very interesting to see what this ride actually looks like with sit-down trains as opposed to the stand-up trains that we've seen it operating with of the past 30 years. But if you know what I'm talking about, basically The Wave is an Intamin sit-down. Well, it was originally an Intamin stand-up coaster called Shockwave that opened in 1994. Obviously it was Drayton Manor's headline attraction for many years, for about 29 years, obviously. And it operated pretty much without any sort of problems from 1994 until 2023, when they decided, obviously a few years prior to that, Drayton Manor had been bought out by the Looping Group, and they stated they wanted to make Drayton Manor their flagship park, and they've been doing that by investing a lot of new attractions and themed lands. But obviously the main target for Drayton Manor is to make it a family-friendly theme park with mainly family attractions. So things like Vikings, which is obviously full of family rides such as Loki, Thor, Jormungandr and Sleipnir, and things like the new land Frontier Falls, which obviously it's got a bunch of rethemed attractions, but has also got the brand new Intamin family lift and launch coaster opening this year, and obviously the addition of The Wave. Now The Wave obviously is technically a thrill coaster, but they're branding it as the UK's most thrilling family coaster, which I find very strange, but fair enough. But basically they said their plan was to replace the stand-up trains with new sit-down trains so that they could lower the height restriction, meaning that younger riders could actually ride the ride on with its new trains. So obviously they had the closing ceremony in November 2023. So obviously where you could get final rides on Shockwave with its original stand-up trains. And since then they've obviously been refurbishing the rides. They announced a couple of months back that it was going to be called the Wave now, as opposed to Shockwave, with like a theme around surfing and riding the waves and things like that. And it looks very interesting because obviously the trains themselves, obviously, they're brand new. You're sitting down on the trains, but they've also got lap bars as well. They've not got any over the shoulder restraints anymore. They do literally have lap bars. So obviously, on the one hand, the fact that it's now got lap bars is a plus, but it's how the ride will feel sitting down as opposed to standing up. Because obviously, the ride's track was originally designed for the stand-up trains. Because obviously, they're different. They're designed differently than the normal sit-down coasters. But either way, I cannot wait to see how it turns out. Also in the news today, and this is some very different news that we never really sort of spoke about here on Coast News. John Wardley has released a brand new autobiography, which is a follow-up to his Creating My Own Nemesis book, which is called Life After Nemesis. And obviously, I don't think many of us actually knew that it was going to make a follow-up to his autobiography, Creating My Own Nemesis. But if you don't know who I'm talking about, basically John Wardley is a British attraction designer who was responsible for some of the most iconic amusement park and theme park attractions in the UK. Obviously, his career started around the 1970s, when he would become like a stage manager for various different film and theatre productions. But his career in the amusement industry would start with Madame Tussauds, where he would design waxwork figures, and he would even design animatronic figures, which were completely new for the UK at the time and for most of the world, because at the time the only companies that had actually done animatronic technology and amusement attractions were Disney. So what he did was actually completely new and revolutionary to this country. Obviously his career would progress from Tussauds as the years went on, with designing attractions for places like Barry Island Amusement Park. But his career would really make himself known as one of the best theme park attraction designers when he opened attractions around Alton Towers and Chessington. Because he had brought Chessington into its theme park state from what it previously was as a zoo, with all kinds of new attractions such as Dragon Falls, which is obviously now Tiger Rock, and other different attractions, and things like Vampire, which opened in 1990. Which brought a lot of huge crowds to Chessington. It would also continue with the addition of the Haunted House and Katanga Canyon at Alton Towers in 1992. But it would be when he created Nemesis in 1994 that his career absolutely took off. In terms of how great it was. It obviously become well known for other attractions such as Oblivion, Air, which is now Galactica, 13, The Smiler, and Wicker Man, and many others as well. And though he's obviously now retired, he actually does consult for some of the other attractions that Alton Towers do, things like Curse Alton Manor, Nemesis Reborn, and other attractions as well. So obviously, in 2013, after The Smiler had opened, he actually wrote an autobiography called Creating My Own Nemesis, which is obviously to do with all his career in the amusement park industry. And literally just this past week, he actually wrote a follow-up book called Life After Nemesis, which basically follows directly on from where his previous book, Creating My Nemesis, left off, and journeys all throughout his career so far with all of The Smiler, Wicker Man, and other attractions, and obviously Nemesis Reborn as well. So it's very cool how he's done this. I'll make sure to hopefully buy a copy of Life After Nemesis so I can have a read it, and it's absolutely amazing. And finally in the news today, Pleasure Beach Resort have announced that the Grand Prix attraction will officially be closing on the 7th of June 2024. And obviously we knew this was coming anyway, because Amanda Thompson had officially confirmed that Grand Prix was closing to be replaced by another attraction. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, basically Grand Prix is an attraction, is like a driving cars sort of attraction that has been operating at Pleasure Beach Resort for many, many years now. Obviously, it's not one of the most popular rides in the park, but it's one of the some more vintage attractions at Pleasure Beach Resort, which obviously most of its life has been known as Blackpool Pleasure Beach, but obviously they've renamed, rebranded. But basically, it's been operating for many years now, and Pleasure Beach Resort actually, or should I say Amanda Thompson, who was obviously the CEO, basically confirmed on Twitter on the opening day of Pleasure Beach Resort, which was on the 2nd of March, that Grand Prix would actually be closing to be replaced by another attraction. Now, she hasn't stated what this new attraction is going to be, and she didn't initially state when Grand Prix had already closed. In fact, I'm pretty sure she originally said that Grand Prix was already closed, strangely enough. But then obviously earlier this week, in fact literally this morning at the time of recording, Pleasure Beach Resort had actually confirmed that they would be holding a closing ceremony for Grand Prix called Grand Prix The Final Lap, where they'll be hosting obviously final rides on it. You'll get an official certificate to say you were there on the closing day. They'll have live entertainment, different new food and drink opportunities, photo opportunities with all different sports cars as well as a range of other things on the day. Obviously tickets for the closing day are not cheap at all. I think they're about £50 per person, which is crazy. Considering it's like, it's not even like one of the roller coasters or anything that's closing. But obviously it is a vintage attraction at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. It's got that heritage as well. So the fact that it is closing is kind of a big deal for them. As for what's going to replace it, like I said, we have absolutely zero details on what is going to replace Grand Prix. We know that it's going to be a brand new attraction, but we don't know what. That site could possibly be big enough to fit a new roller coaster. I mean, it's been 6 years since Icon opens, but so that space could be space for a new roller coaster. I don't know, but we'll just have to wait and see what replaces Grand Prix. So that is it for this week's episode of Coast News. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you did, then please make sure to like, subscribe, and comment if you would like to see you in the next video. Goodbye.